Everyone. So we have a unique thing, 10Rockets. I have not met them, but talked to them on the phone Monday. They're about their business. And then Wednesday we have an opportunity to meet them in person. So I'll just say, sorry guys, you don't get any of our good coffee this morning, but you can next week. I think they'll join us for our next week presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to y'all and let you tell us about Tenrocket.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sweet, thank you so much for having us. And we heard at least part of people's introductions, so freaking out a little bit. So if anyone does have questions while we're going through this, use a mic or speak very loudly. So,
okay.
Can you guys hear us okay?
You hear us? Good?
Yes.
Cool, okay, great. All right, so, really loose open format. We tend to be very conversational in our presentation style, so we just wanted to tell you a little bit about us, tell you about our company story, and, hopefully just make some really solid connections. We are gonna be there next Monday through Wednesday, so we're really looking forward to hopefully meeting some of you in person as well. So my name is Chris, this is Justin. We founded Tenrocket back in 2014. And I have a very personal story with the creation of Tenrocket and how it came about. A long time ago, I guess now about 6 years ago, I was working on an education technology startup. At the time it was called Frank Einstein. And really the goal was to help empower kids to be more creative in schools just through really effective use of technology and giving them creative projects. So I did what probably a lot of you have done. I went about calling up as many developers and agencies as I could, and quickly was faced with a really sobering realization as a non-technical founder that building apps is an extremely expensive endeavor. The cheapest quote that I ever received for my app idea was $25,000, and it went as high as $250,000. So at the time I worked for a nonprofit organization and wasn't making anywhere close to $250,000 and maybe just a little over $25,000. So, I was kind of faced with this reality that I thought I'd be a really good entrepreneur and that it was what I felt called to do, but that I didn't have the money to make it happen. So that was a really tough thing for me to realize, and I went through a very just difficult personal time. I also supported my family, so it was a really hard thing to come home and say, hey, I really want to do this, but we just don't have the finances. Can you make it work? And quickly we realized we couldn't make it work. So after going through all that, I was introduced to a company locally here in Atlanta called the Iron Yard, which was a 3-month coding accelerator. Now those are pretty commonplace. There's quite a few of those programs, but at the time it was pretty novel to me. So I went through a 3-month coding boot camp, and at the end of that, I built a minimum viable product for Frankenstein in about 10 days. And I had this realization pretty quickly, like, man, if I could do this as a junior developer with 3 months of experience, I wonder what people who have been coding for 10 years can do. So I kind of took that concept and I went to a local pitch event for startups here in Atlanta, and sure enough, pitched this concept of an app development company who builds apps in 10 business days. And sure enough, there was a guy in the audience who raised his hand and said he would be my first client. So I kind of took that concept, went back to my wife and said, hey, I got my first client today, on my first pitch. If we can keep getting clients, what do you think? Can we try to make this work? And she said, sure, absolutely, just keep getting clients. So we did that. I did that by myself for a couple months, and I had made friends with Justin. He was one of the first friends I made when I moved up to Atlanta from Augusta. So I found out that Justin was leaving his job with Turner Broadcasting, and I knew that he was a really fantastic developer. So at the time, I was only doing web applications, and Justin was able to come in and serve as the mobile developer. So we continued building just ourselves internally for about 4 months and really built up our initial client base, and then pretty quickly got into the need to expand. And at that point, Tenrocket, it really started to take off and formalize in our heads. We decided, instead of becoming, more or less a typical development agency, to become a platform for other entrepreneurs to launch their ideas. So we instead focused all of our attention and efforts on building the most rock solid, amazing developer community that we possibly could, a group of developers that not only had the technical skills, but also had design skills and then fantastic communication skills. So we built that developer community up to about 15 or 20 strong. And since then, we've built more than 45 applications in the past 2.5 years for new entrepreneurs. And since we don't do any existing applications, all of the apps that we've built have been from the ground up, meaning that people come to us with their ideas. A lot of times they're not really formalized, they're just swimming around in their brains. And we help them to formalize that concept and then to ultimately make it real, which is our tagline and what we firmly believe is our vision for the future. So kind of bringing that full circle, one of our goals this year is to really meet so many new entrepreneurs like a lot of you. We found that truly investing in relationships and meeting inspiring people has been the most rewarding part of what we do. Even a lot of people think, oh, that's just because sometimes they turn into clients, and that's not the case at all. We just truly love meeting really awesome people. It's why we wake up and do what we do every morning. A lot of times we meet with people and it's just not a good fit, but it's still an awesome opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs who are trying to actually make a dent in the universe and do something that no one else is doing. So getting up every day with that opportunity really motivates us and drives us forward. And our only ask for today, if there is something to ask of your community, is for connections, for feedback, for introductions to other people who may need their apps developed, who may need just some initial consultation on their ideas to flesh it out. Any way that we can help add value to your community, we're all about. And we genuinely appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, get that guy a mic. Or just talk very loudly. We should be able to.
There we go.
Sweet. Work.
It looks like you're all doing the robot right now.
Hey guys, okay, this is Ruben. I love what you guys are doing. Sounds like a great idea. Initial thoughts are, especially in the startup world, there are a lot of really hard trade-offs to be made, especially surrounding tech. I'm curious how you guys are getting up and running in business days. What's the specific tech platform you're using?
So I think the question. Sorry, you guys are breaking up a lot. I think the question.
We're getting echo. Sorry, we're doing our best here to get your question here.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I think the question, and like I said, it was really broken up, but I think the question was, there's a lot of variability, more or less, in startups and the type of technologies that are being developed. How do we consistently build apps in 10 business days when the variability is so high? Is that correct?
The specific question was, what tech stack are you using?
Oh, what tech stack?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was completely lost on me. I apologize. Yeah, I'll let Justin take that. He's our CTO.
Yeah, so we test out a lot of different technologies, but typically we try to, for mobile, we end up using React Native, and then on desktop, we'll end up using Ruby or Node. And we try to keep everything pretty consistent because it just helps us a lot as far as like whenever we're mitigating problems and working through issues. So yeah, that's usually what we work on. And sometimes Ionic, but we recently switched to React Native. So that's been our React Native we found is like a really good platform for like building on, especially for mobile.
Very cool.
Cool.
What other questions? Anything? Chris's question is, how much does it generally cost?
How much does it generally cost to build an app?
Yes.
Cool. So our entire model is built off of apps built in 10 business days for $10,000. You know, a lot of people have asked, and this was what I thought the first question was, you know, how do we fit any app into 10 business days? The answer to that is that we really focus heavily on foundational products. So when an entrepreneur comes to us with an idea, as you guys might imagine, a lot of times that vision is pretty grandiose. And they're saying, you know, this is going to be the next Facebook, or, you know, any of the other common cliches we might hear in the startup universe. So one of the biggest value adds that we provide is to really help them to focus their initial vision, hopefully into a 10-day scope. Now, there are circumstances where, you know, say somebody wants to implement, you know, something with machine learning, or if they're working with a really, you know, innovative brand new framework, and it's something that's going to take a little bit more than 10 days. You know, we do stack projects on top of each other, and we generally work on a business day model. So, you know, we'll do something that's 12 business days if that's what it's going to take. But our effort and our focus is always to get them as focused as possible, as opposed to, I guess, the standard industry model, which is to try to, you know, more or less convince you to build as much of your vision as you can, because ultimately that ends up typically lining the pockets of the agencies and the developers more. But what we found works best for us is to establish trust early on by almost convincing you to pay us less and to focus more.
And honestly, like, kind of piggyback on that, for us as entrepreneurs, it would be, we're taking a very entrepreneurial approach to, I guess, to what we're doing, or I guess a love for the entrepreneur community. So that's a lot of what drives us. So yeah, there probably is better ways to make a lot more money, but we choose to, like, we're really just passionate about helping people like launch their ideas and get them out in the world, and working with entrepreneurs. And so, I mean, we love seeing the product built, but we really enjoy helping what we felt like we wish we would have had, someone like telling us things early on. We don't claim that we're the most experienced guys ever, but we sat with enough startups and been in this game long enough to at least have some wisdom to share. And so there's, yeah, we find that as like probably one of the most fun parts of the whole process is just helping the entrepreneur, whether they're a client or not, just working with them and really just giving back. So we love business and we love entrepreneurship. So it's just, that's really the most fun part right there.
I had a question about, as a client, like if we were to approach you and we had an idea to go for, or if we had an app already developed, what kind of forward support beyond the 10 days of having developed an app would we be able to accept that? It's kind of a two-part question. If we had an app already that we were interested in developing beyond the initial launch stage, would you be able to support that? Beyond 10 days of launch?
I think, sorry, it's really hard to hear sometimes. I think the question was, if you already have an app and you're looking to do work post-launch, is that something that we offer after the app is already developed? Is that the question?
Yeah, so that was one part, but ahead of that, if we would decided to start an app with you guys as a company, as a client, is there any future support beyond? Because obviously we're coming to you as a client without that in-house expertise already, and there's going to be things like rollouts of version 2, version 3 updates, things like that.
Got it. Got it.
How do we support the tool that we just paid for?
Got it. Okay, cool. So to answer your first question, we only focus on building apps from the ground up. So any company that's already had existing technology that they just want to add on top of or create new features, that's not our wheelhouse, and it's what we consciously choose not to focus on so that we can deliver that much more value to what we do focus on. The second part of that question is, once we've worked with a client to launch their initial product, do we offer any ongoing maintenance? And the answer is just something that we're also really proud of because it's so unique. We actually don't do the development ongoing in-house at Tenrocket. So one of our value props to our developers is that once you've built that initial product for the entrepreneur, in our opinion, and what's worked for us really well so far is that relationship and that trust is now established between the two parties who were previously disjointed, right? So the developer and the entrepreneur now have worked together on that foundational product and have established that trust, and therefore no longer need Tenrocket as much to manage that relationship and to make sure it goes well. So what we do offer is developers 100% of those projects with the entrepreneur moving forward. And then to the entrepreneur, we say, if this relationship ever goes sour, or if your developer ever leaves for any reason, just contact us and we'll be happy to introduce you to another developer in our network free of charge.
The hope is that this programmer now can act more like a CTO, and because honestly, like most entrepreneurs, they have a set amount of cash and they want to spend that and like get their app out the door, and then they'll be probably doing progressive updates as they go. So they don't need a large agency like overhead unless you just are flush with funding. Most startups just need a little update here and there as they go and need more of the technical advisement of like a CTO would bring. So we try to find like what would we want and not necessarily approach this purely from like how an agency model is typically run. So the hope is that you build a project, but you also will find a CTO in the process. So we think that's pretty fun and unique part of the whole deal. Because I mean, that's a really big problem in startups. We get that asked all the time. It's like, how do you find a good CTO? Where do you find them? Like, and again, we're more than happy to share those secrets with how we found those people. And that might even be a workshop we could do sometime in the future. But yeah, those are like, the hope is that that person now can like walk with you on the rest of your journey.
By the way, in case anybody's curious, a lot of times people get the impression that we're very anti-agency just because so much of our is, like really, working with agencies. What we actually are, we're actually pro-agency, just not in the case of working with the average early stage startup founder. So, for companies like, Coca-Cola or Delta or anything like that have a ton of cash and a ton of, people working on this project at one point, they've got their own UX people. Agencies are set up very for those kind of projects. It's really when you're trying to get this idea off the ground and you haven't really formalized it entirely in your head, or if you don't have just a boatload of cash that you're sitting on, that agencies just typically aren't set up for those kind of projects. So we try to like really fill that niche for that early stage founder just looking to prove this concept in a foundational way.
Did anyone else have a question? Oh. Yeah. How big are the teams that work on the apps?
Great question. So the average team is actually a team of one rock solid, amazing full stack developer. So we spend a lot of time really highly vetting our developers. And like I said, we vet them not only for their technological abilities, but also for having an eye for design, for having worked with startups in the past, either for another startup or on their own, and for being a great communicator. And for us, a great communicator means that they're easy to understand. They are responsive, and generally they're friendly, nice people who you'd want to grab a beer with. Mm-hmm. All of those qualities together make for a very difficult developer to find. And if you know any developers like that within our tech stack, we would love introductions. We're always interested in growing our network. We do occasionally allow for teams of 2 or 3 to come on board. We've started experimenting with that, and we found pretty good success because a lot of them have the ability to put a designer on one part of it and a developer on another. And sometimes those things, if they have the right workflows, come together really smoothly. But certainly we don't have any, massive agencies or teams on board just yet.
Next, have you worked on to date?
How many apps? Is that the question? How many apps have we built to date?
Yes.
We have built 46 applications to date in the past 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, cool.
Any we've heard of?
Any we've heard of?
Well, I don't wager to guess what you guys have heard of, but we've built a lot of really cool local startups. I mean, we haven't built any Ubers or anything
Yeah.
like that. We've built an independent Spotify for comic books called Farrago Comics. That's really interesting, where you can discover independent comic book creators. That got a lot of press both locally here and actually nationally. They were featured, I believe, in the Washington Post. And they have a lot of really amazing and inspiring comic book creators on their platform. Something that you guys will be likely to hear of soon that we're really excited about is called Shift. And it's a platform for hiring veterans. It's based out of San Francisco. So we built that about 3 months ago. It's at shift.org. If you guys are curious about checking it out, something that we're really proud to have worked on. And we happen to know that the entrepreneur really kicks ass, and he's going to be really growing this thing like crazy over the next few months and few years.
Awesome. Well, the last question we ask is, what can our community do for you? And if in this question we can touch on next Tuesday in the workshop you'll be leading, that'd be awesome.
I think the question is what the community can do to help us. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. I mentioned this a little bit in the initial pitch, but the thing that we most appreciate are introductions. I mean, we make it a point every day to meet new people. So even if those introductions are not necessarily to other founders who are looking to get their app off the ground, we love meeting really inspiring people. We have lots of mentors and thought leaders that we network with and that we just stay in touch with on an ongoing basis. One of the reasons that we're going to Chattanooga next week is that we just really love meeting people and getting to know new startup cities. We've just seen so many amazing things happening in your community there. So I guess something else that you guys can do is just welcoming us with open arms next week and showing us the ropes of your city and the kind of things that we should be attending.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I feel sometimes I feel like it is a little bit cliche to just ask for work or new people, but I mean, honestly, in this case, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you see something, you're like, why is this part of your model like this? I don't know. If you see any glaring, obvious mistakes that we are making, like, or think that we could do it better, like, we are all ears. Again, we'll be there next Wednesday, so yeah, I don't know. Tried to work very hard on the model, but we're also really big fans of like just pretty much complete honesty. There's a kind of a saying that we have between truth and love. Finding a place where we can be honest with the people that we care most about, but then helping them grow.
So, sorry, the Tenrocket will be here next Tuesday for the workshop. Could y'all just give an overview of why someone would want to attend the workshop next Tuesday?
Sure. So the workshop is really focused on a framework that we've grown really fond of. It's based on a book called Traction, which we highly recommend picking up.
Yeah, everyone go and buy it like right now.
So one of the things that came out of our reading of that book was just this idea of focusing really heavily on fewer marketing channels, but doing those marketing channels and focusing on them really, really heavily. Before that, we were still testing things, but we weren't tracking as many metrics as we should have been, and we were not getting focused as quickly as we should have been. So this workshop is about taking that book and getting to the actionable steps that helped us, to really grow from a small dev shop to now a platform that's helping entrepreneurs all over the world launch their companies.
Mm-hmm.
To be more specific, that book actually led us to what ultimately got us to a state where we were #1 on Product Hunt. So, you know, that's not to say that like we have a repeatable framework to make that happen for everybody, but we think, and we're fond believers in this, that doing the right things on a consistent basis ultimately leads to things like that. So the workshop is really designed to bring that out.
And honestly, just to show us as guinea pigs, like how we did it and mistakes that we made. And to ask us questions. So we're here to help. And there is, if you do want to pick up the book beforehand or just to go get it, it's Traction, and it's there's actually 2 Traction books out there. You want to pick up the one by Justin Merritt. So yeah, there's sometimes because there's 2 Traction books.
Awesome. All right. Well, at the end of every presentation, we give a coffee mug. So,
Just pour it on
you.
you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us this morning, and we look forward to meeting you all next week.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.